Kenji Arakawa had never heard a gunshot. To him, violence arrived as flashes of light, trembling floors, and terrified expressions. Born completely deaf, he had learned to survive by studying movement, reading lips, and noticing the tiny signs of betrayal that hearing people often missed. At 38, Kenji controlled one of Yokohama's most feared criminal organizations. Rivals called him the Silent Dragon, believing his silence made him mysterious and dangerous. Only one man stood between Kenji and the hearing world, Masato Sato, his longtime interpreter and most trusted advisor. For more than 20 years, Sato had translated every meeting, threat, and negotiation. Kenji believed Sato was loyal because he had served the Arakawa family since Kenji was a child. What Kenji did not understand was that the man who controlled his conversations also controlled his reality. Everything changed when an elderly housekeeper was injured and a temporary maid named Hana Mori arrived at the mansion. Hana was young, quiet, and unusually fearless. When she entered, she looked directly at Kenji and greeted him in Japanese sign language. Kenji froze. No servant had ever been allowed to communicate with him directly. His father had forbidden it, insisting that all communication pass through Sato. When Kenji asked Hana where she had learned sign language, she explained that her mother had taught deaf children. Sato immediately interrupted, warning that Hana might not understand the boundaries of the household. Hana replied that she understood them perfectly, but Sato deliberately translated her words as an apology. Kenji noticed the lie. It was small, but it left a crack in the trust he had carried for most of his life. Later that evening, Hana was cleaning Kenji's private library when she noticed a symbol engraved on a locked cabinet. 3 waves inside a circle. The same symbol appeared on a silver pendant her mother had given her before dying. As Hana held the pendant near the cabinet, Kenji entered the room and demanded to know where she had gotten it. Hana opened the pendant. Inside was an old photograph showing 2 women standing beside a young deaf boy. One woman was Hana's mother, Dr. Yumi Mori. The other was Kenji's mother, Kenji Arakawa. The child between them was Kenji. There was also a tiny hearing device inside. The sight triggered a buried memory. Kenji remembered his mother placing the device behind his ear when he was 6. Then his father had entered, torn it away, and screamed at her. Kenji had spent years believing the memory was only a dream. Hana explained that her mother had once been Kenji's doctor. Akemi wanted Kenji to attend a school for deaf children, learn sign language, and communicate independently. His father refused because he believed deafness was shameful. More importantly, he feared losing control of his son. Hana said Akemi had planned to escape with Kenji. Before disappearing, she gave Dr. Mori the photograph, the hearing device, and a secret letter. At that moment, Sato entered the library and dropped a tray when he saw the photograph. Though Kenji could not hear the crash, he felt the vibration and noticed the panic on Sato's face. Sato insisted that Hana was manipulating him, but Kenji ordered her to remain in the mansion until the truth was found. Hana had not come there only to work. She had spent 3 years investigating her mother's death. Dr. Mori had been killed in a hit-and-run accident only 2 days after Akemi disappeared. Officially, Kenji's mother had driven into the harbor and drowned, but her body had never been found. As Kenji and Hana searched for answers, they grew closer. Hana asked about his childhood, and Kenji admitted that tutors had slapped his hands whenever he tried to sign. His father forced him to speak aloud, even though he could not hear his own voice. "He wanted you to appear hearing," Hana signed. "He wanted me to appear perfect," Kenji replied. Hana looked at him and said, "You were already complete." No one had ever told him that. Hana later showed Kenji how to feel music by placing his hand against the wooden body of a piano. When she pressed the keys, vibrations moved through his palm. Kenji called it movement. Hana smiled and said perhaps music was simply movement people had learned to feel with their ears. From the hallway, Sato watched them with growing anger. For years, Sato had controlled every message entering or leaving Kenji's world. If a rival offered peace, Sato could translate it as disrespect. If a captain questioned an order, Sato could describe it as betrayal. Hana threatened to destroy that control. 2 nights later, Kenji met Hiro Tanaka, leader of a rival syndicate. Tanaka spoke slowly so Kenji could read his lips. He said his organization did not want war and had not authorized a recent attack on Kenji's warehouse. Sato translated something entirely different. He told Kenji that Tanaka considered him weak and was threatening another attack. Kenji understood enough from Tanaka's lips to know Sato was lying. He asked Hana to translate. She confirmed that Tanaka had denied responsibility. Tanaka's own interpreter agreed. Kenji ordered Sato to leave the room. Tanaka then produced photographs of the warehouse attackers. They wore rival clothing, but several had once worked for Sato. Someone was deliberately creating a war between both organizations. Kenji confronted Sato that night. Sato finally revealed his bitterness. He claimed that Kenji had done nothing while others built his empire, and that without Sato's voice, the silent dragon would never have existed. Kenji struck him and ordered the guards to arrest him. Before they could move, the mansion's lights went out. Gunmen stormed the estate. Sato had secretly compromised the security system. Kenji grabbed Hana and led her through a hidden tunnel beneath the library. They escaped through the garage after fighting 2 armed men, with Hana knocking one unconscious using a fire extinguisher. By morning, the world believed Kenji had been killed. Sato seized control of the organization and blamed the rival syndicate, calling both sides to war. Kenji and Hana hid inside an abandoned school for deaf children once operated by Dr. Mori. Behind a loose brick in her former office, they discovered a metal box containing Akemi's missing letter. In it, Kenji's mother explained everything. She wrote that Sato and Kenji's father had used Kenji's name to order violence. Sato had changed messages before they reached him, creating enemies Kenji had never chosen. Akemi told her son he was not broken and did not need another man to become his voice. Beneath the letter was a ledger connecting Sato to dozens of murders, including Dr. Mori's death. It also showed payments to a private medical facility in northern Japan. The patient's name was Kenji Arakawa. Kenji's mother was alive. She had been imprisoned for 32 years. Hana stopped Kenji from rushing back for revenge. She reminded him that Sato expected rage. "You spent your life believing you needed a hearing man to speak for you," she told him. "Now show him what happens when you speak for yourself." Kenji contacted Hiro Tanaka directly through a secure video call. Hana translated every word exactly as Kenji signed it. Together, they planned to expose Sato during a gathering at an abandoned shipyard. Sato arrived expecting Tanaka's surrender. Instead, senior members of both organizations watched as Kenji appeared alive on a massive screen. Kenji presented the ledger, photographs and security footage proving Sato's betrayal. But Sato had prepared gunmen. The lights went out and the shipyard erupted into chaos. In the darkness, Kenji had an advantage. Hearing men depended on sound, but he placed his hand against the steel beams and felt footsteps and movement through the vibrations. Loyal men used colored wrist lights Hana had prepared to identify allies and enemies. Sato captured Hana and dragged her onto an elevated platform. When the emergency lights returned, he held a gun against her and shouted that he had created the silent dragon. "Without my voice, you are nothing," he yelled. Kenji raised his hands and signed, "You were never my voice." Sato demanded a translation. Hana stared at him and replied, "He said you talk too much." She struck her foot against the metal platform in a coded rhythm. Kenji felt the vibration and understood her signal to move left. He fired at the chain holding a heavy cargo hook. The hook swung across the platform and knocked the gun from Sato's hand. Kenji charged upstairs. Sato attacked him with a knife, but his anger betrayed every movement. Kenji watched his face and eyes, predicting each strike. He disarmed him and forced him against the railing. Sato told Kenji to kill him. For most of Kenji's life, he would have done it. Instead, he remembered his mother's words about true strength. He released Sato and allowed the police to arrest him for murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy. 3 days later, Kenji and Hana traveled to the medical facility named in the ledger. They found Akemi sitting beside a window, her hair white and her body frail. When Kenji entered, she raised her hands and signed, "My son." Kenji fell to his knees. "I thought you abandoned me," he signed. "Never," she answered. Months later, Kenji dismantled the criminal organization. He converted its legitimate businesses and used part of his fortune to reopen Dr. Mori's school for deaf children. A photograph of Akemi and Dr. Mori was placed in the entrance hall beside the words, "No child should need permission to possess a voice." On opening day, Hana found Kenji sitting beside the restored piano. She placed his hand on the wood and pressed a key. The vibration moved through his palm. Then she returned the old hearing device. Kenji studied it before closing the silver case. For years, he had believed hearing would have made him stronger. Now he understood that deafness had never been his weakness. His weakness had been allowing another man to define the world for him. Hana asked what the piano felt like. Kenji placed her hand beside his and pressed several keys. "Like silence finally telling the truth," he signed. Outside, rain struck the windows. Kenji could not hear it, but he could see every drop and feel Hana's hand